Chair.
It's Kubeshni here.
Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, our guests, and also good morning, our stakeholders. I think we have to start the meeting. We are 4 minutes, a little bit later. Thank you very much for being so patient. I wish to welcome everybody in a meeting. The meeting is officially opened. I also hope that everybody is okay. And also I would want to remind you about this month of Tata Mandela, July month. We are left with few days to the 18th when he was born, and also interested to check whether are we still remembering our hero who also put us in where we are today. I also wish everybody, I know it's school holidays for other sessions, and I know that we are also sometimes enjoying this thing of being with grands, families, and everybody. But I know that you respect the meeting, and you felt, in fact, you felt that you have to be part and parcel of the meeting today, which I understand. Our meeting is going to just go straight to the business of the day, as we know that we don't have much time. Today we also have a sitting, and other honorable members have to go and prepare for their speeches and also get ready for the house. So we schedule for this meeting for past to at least 1 o'clock. But if it goes to a push, we will try to be very patient and allow other honorable members and also our entities to put and say all what they wanted to say to us. Thank you very much. I wish to acknowledge whoever that is in the meeting. I understand that our secretary is going to give us the apologies, and also so that we can be able to acknowledge some of other people that we might have left them out. There is the agenda, honorable members, and our guest, and also our stakeholders. I'm not going to do a long speeches, and also I would love also to say I welcome you everybody in the meeting. Then the agenda has been flighted, and I know the next item, it's the apologies. So we are going to give over to the secretary to lead us with the apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We've received the following apologies. Honorable Kwankwa, who's attending the Chief Whips Forum, and then also an apology from Mr. Milam, who due to other engagements is unable to attend the meeting this morning. Then we've also received apologies from Minister Ramagopa and Deputy Minister Graham Mare, who's attending Cabinet subcommittees today, Chair. We've also received an apology from the Acting Director General, Chair, of the Department of Electricity and Energy. Thank you, Chair. Those are the apologies received. Then just to indicate, Chair, look, there's been changes with the membership of the committee. Mr. Mbata is now an alternate to the committee. Mr. Molefe is now a full-time member of the committee. So from the MKP's changes, Chair. So as I say, Mr. Molefe is now a full-time member. Mr. Mbata is an alternate to the committee. That's it, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Welcome back, Honorable Brian Leafy. We know you that you are not a new person in this committee. we've been together for quite a long time, and we managed to maybe care for one another as the portfolio committee. As you understand and know that we are a family here, much as we represent our organization, but that is not a big issue and not a big thing. But here we are brothers and sisters, and we are members of the committee, and you understand it. So there is no need for you to take you through on what is it that usually takes place in the committee, but discipline is one of those things that we honor as this committee. We might differ in terms of views, but that doesn't make us to be enemies. So you are welcome back, Honorable Mliff. Then can I get someone who can... Okay, can I get an honorable member who can accept the apologies first, and then Ariko go to the agenda so that we can both accept and also adopt it, because it's one item.
Right, Chair. Honorable Hassan, may I go ahead?
Yes.
I'm happy to move for the acceptance of the apologies as well as the adoption of the agenda as has been presented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fasia. Any seconder too?
Okay, I will second.
Honorable Baptist seconds it. Thank you very much, honorable members. Understanding that some of other members have got many committees and also many activities. Even ourselves, as the time goes on, we will be committed and also busy with other things. But we honor and respect the meeting, and we understand that they have to juggle around, go to this committee and that one. Thank you very much for acceptance and also for the adoption of the agenda, which is one item, the briefing from Eskom. Can we go straight to Eskom so that we can have plenty time for us to get into the discussions and questions of clarification? Over to you, Eskom.
Good morning, Chairperson. It's Kubeshni Bhagwandin from the Department of Electricity and Energy. And thank you for that opportunity for allowing the Eskom team to brief the committee on the revised Just Energy Transition Plan. We will welcome...
Recording in progress.
We welcome all insights from the committee. Any plan is not cast in stone. And so these insights will, allow us to rework and revise any of the plans. With that, I'd like to then hand over to Becky Kumalo from the Eskom team, who will be leading. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that breaking ice. Can we give over to the person who has been delegated to?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings to the honorable members. And thanks, DTG, for the introduction. My name is Becky from Eskom Generation. Chair, maybe just also to convey the apology from the Group Chief Executives. He is also not around today for other engagement. Chair, we will be taking the committee through the revised JET strategy. Myself and my two colleagues, Ms. Nontogozo Hadebe and Mr. Rivoningo Mnisi, we will be taking the committee through this strategy for Eskom. Chair, I think what is critical on this one, the point that we are making, Chair, on this strategy is the issue of having to decouple the station shut down, or what is termed decommissioning, from the JET strategy. So we felt that following the lessons that we have learned from the Komati incident, that even for internally in Eskom, it was something that was causing a lot of anxiety to the employees as well, to say, you know, JET was linked to shutting down the stations, and that created a lot of issues. So we have then decided, which we have taken off to board and approved, that we need to decoupling to say the stations will have a finite life, and which is what JET is a separate from that. And to that effect, you will note that you will see even in our new stations, like if you go around Medupi, where we've got farms and enough sun, we are already putting some of the new projects that align with the transition. So that is, we found that was critical, Chair, to really also demonstrate to employees and also to the public that the station life cycle and the JET are two components, and they need to happen separately. So that is the first point, Chair, we want to make here as a part of the lessons, and also the key considerations in terms of revising the strategy, because then it created a focus as well for us in Eskom. Like I've indicated, it's also based on the lessons from Komati. And then the strategy on the stations that are now being shut down as they reach their end of life is twofold, Chair. One is talk about repowering. Repowering meaning that we are going to introduce different form of energy generation on these power stations. And then we will also talk to the forms of energy, and we talk to all energy mix into this power stations, which will also include the renewables, it will include gas, it will include cleaner coal, and all sorts of technologies that we are having. So that is the part that deals with the repowering of these power stations. And then we will also share with the committee the amount of megawatts that we will be bringing to as part of that initiative. And then the second point, Chair, for the stations that are shutting down is the point that deals with the repurposing of our asset. The asset meaning the farms around the stations, meaning the stations building as well, because there is still a lot of work that we are doing with our research team to see what can we use these facilities for other than just, you know, demolishing and all of that. So repowering is a broader economic issues for the communities also around us. And it also talks to the stakeholders around our power stations, like the mining houses that are linked to us. Yeah. Okay, let's move to the next one, please. Chair, the committee is quite familiar with these trends in terms of the global trends and locally, but I will only focus on those that are touching mainly within Eskom in terms of the documents and the legislations that are governing us as we're dealing with this transition. Chair, you will know that we just received the new Energy Electricity Regulation Act, which is also framed the way forward in terms of how we are moving as Eskom. And then on the Eskom side in particular, the issue of saying we need to use the current asset to improve our operational performance, as the committee is aware where we come from the era of intense load shedding. So the focus really for Eskom was let's improve our operations, especially on the coal fleet, because this issue of transition was also creating anxiety. And then a year ago, the board also approved that other than just to shut down the other station following Komati, which is Camden, Grootvlei, and Hendrina, which were due a year ago for shutdown, we proposed the strategy, which was then approved by board, that let's continue to run these stations at least to 2030, because that's when the legislations going to change on this older station. And I must also give the committee assurance that all these stations that we have improved, they are compliant with the current emission requirements as well. So it was not just to continue running them in violation. So that was, it also gave us a space to be able to plan better, rather than, because we would have said with 4 stations having shut down without a proper plan. And I think now we are in a much better position to really deal with the transition of this station from this current base to the next one. And I think the other point that I want to make on this one in terms of sustainability is that from the Minister of Environment, and we have also received that granting of that permission to run the stations up to that period as well, while we are also doing a lot of work to ensure that the next technologies we are bringing in, they indeed do reduce the environmental footprints where we are operating. Next one, please. Chair, this is a slide that is well known to this committee. Just touch on the key point in terms of the mandate of Eskom. The one on the left, top left there, dealing with the commercial mandate to enabling the economic growth in the country. And then the one on the top right as well, dealing with the social mandate as well. That as a company, we need to also ensure that, you know, we can't just shut things and pack and go as well. We have seen the effect of taking Komati power station, because the value chain is bigger. The station's got much huger value chain beyond Eskom, because they are linked to mining houses, they are linked to all other small businesses and medium businesses. So now the drive that we are having, if I go straight to that, as we are striving for that net zero by 2050, is to say, what do we do on these stations that are following, including Komati as well? So Chair, I can give the committee the assurance now that the projects that we are having in our pipeline, like I've indicated, they include all technologies, including the cleaner coal, the renewables, and all of that. So it's something that we believe that now this continued operation of the current fleet has given us a much breathing space to plan, and then we should be able to execute the revised plan now with a much lesser impact than what has happened at Komati. And we will talk to the types of energies that we will be dealing with into the much more details as well, and how we plan to make sure that the current energy that we are dispatching from these stations can be maintained by different combinations of different technologies. Yeah. Okay. Chair, I think in terms of the strategy change, I did allude to that the decoupling was critical for us, for the employees also to be able to focus on what we needed to do now as well, because there is now and then there is a future as we are transitioning as well. So that has also assisted in calming down the employees. There is focus on what needs to be done, and then they are also clear now about what is going to happen into the future, that we're not just going to shut doors and not without anything that's happening on site. Chair, I think the second point there is critical as well to note to the committee that this transition, again, that's got nothing to do with the shutting down of the station. That's why we started with the battery industry scales some few years ago. I think 3 years ago now, we've commissioned the first one in Worcester in Cape Town. And then we just commissioned one in the KZN area, and we are busy in Eastern Cape and the Northern Cape with another set of the battery storage. So that's again giving that assurance that the transition in terms of our just energy must happen irrespective of when the stations are going to be shut down. We have also just launched, in terms of the part of this transition, our EV infrastructure at our Academy of Learning here through our distribution divisions, and they are leading that EV conversion for the organization as well. So these are all initiatives that are in line with the transition, that are all got nothing to do with when the stations are closing as well. You see initiatives there like green hydrogen with our research team. We are doing a lot of work. We have been manufacturing hydrogen for years as Eskom, but the green one, we are now getting into that space as well. So it's something that we are doing irrespective of when the stations are closing. And then this is really showing the case that, you know, to focus on the transition in broader scheme rather than to confine it to the station shutdown is critical. Chair, to 2030, again, you will see that we talk about 20 gigawatts of different technologies that we will be putting. And most of them, they will be focused on where our current operations are, which is our power stations. We will be talking about all sorts of technologies there. Cleaner coal, renewables, which is PVs, BESS, gas, all of that. So all of them are being considered from an Eskom perspective to say by 2030, we should have had some of the really tangible, starting some of the tangible things that we can show to the public and also mostly to the communities where we are operating, that we are not just going to shut the doors and move away from that as Eskom. Chair, I think that is broadly on the strategy summary. Then we will then go into some of the details, and let me hand over to my colleagues, Mr. Riboningo Mneusi, to take us through the critical one, and then Ms. Nontokozo will then close with some of the strategy, pulling everything together as well. Thanks, Ribo.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, and then over to you, okay?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Becky. I think Becky has already outlined the key principles, highlighting, you know, the progress that we've made and where we're going with the JET. And I'll spend the next couple of slides just going slightly in the detail to give context to each of the principles that he touched.
Excuse me, sir. Can you introduce yourself, because
Okay.
we've got also stakeholders that might not know you. When you
Thanks,
take the
Chair.
platform, I request that everyone introduce himself or herself. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. My name is Riboningo Mneusi. I joined Eskom as a group executive for Eskom Renewables and also looking after the JET program together with Becky. The whole intent is really, Eskom has been on a drive to make sure that we realize the strategy on renewables, and most importantly, that we transition responsible when it comes to the JET program. So I've been assigned with that responsibility at an executive level, mainly to give it focus and drive that it requires to make sure that the strategies and the plans that we're going to share today are realized together with the executive team. With that said, Chair, if I may proceed, as I was highlighting that the principles of the JET, they are not divorced to the three components of the energy trilemma, which is security, affordability, access, and most importantly, sustainability. What we've learned, as highlighted by my colleague, is that the decoupling from shutting down of power or decommissioning of power stations has highlighted other important factors. One is the fact that when we do the transition, we need to make sure that the available infrastructure at different sites is utilized and planned for way before time, before we start with the repurposing. And we've already started that work. The other thing that we also picked up from our initial JET program, we also figure that, you know, there is certain projects where Eskom may not necessarily take the leading role, and those issues could be some of those non-core to the energy generation. And in those, what we do is we incubate other new businesses that are catalytic to the transition and make sure that we support them in terms of reskilling and upskilling, particularly on issues of repurposing. So you'll hear that we talk about two things: repowering and repurposing. Repowering talks to our renewable program and the clean energy program. Repurposing talks to the secondary economy and other jobs that we could make out of the transition. The other point that we also wanted to highlight is that we've also seen that often people mistake that when we talk about renewables or clean technologies, they tend to think that it's coal versus the clean technology. And we've made it quite clear in our strategy that we'll also show you in detail that we do not see it that way. Rather, we see these two coexisting while we're chasing our goal when it comes to the carbon emissions. When going into the JET strategy itself, what we're also looking is there's an opportunity for us to give our power station a second life, and also considering the community that depend on it. And then secondly, we also looked at the least cost pathway for adding new capacity. So Eskom has got land, it's got access to the grid in most of these power stations, and most of this land that we're talking about where the opportunity lies is in close proximity to these power stations and the grid. And hence we see a huge opportunity to give these power stations a second life, decoupled from whether these stations continue to operate or do not continue to operate. So those two are separate. Lastly, we also considered issues of low-cost financing, because we do acknowledge that to give this power station the second life, it will need us to attract certain models of funding and capital from various funders across the globe, which we'll also touch base on. If we can move on to the next slide. So, Chair, without standing still, I do believe that we've shared a lot of these lessons that we've picked up from our Komati experience. But important to note is, what are we doing differently, particularly looking at the upcoming power stations like Hendrina, Camden, Grootvlei, and those that are advanced like Arnold and Kriel. So firstly, I would like to, give the committee confidence that we have started upfront preparatory work in critical areas like supporting the project design and implementation of the JET strategy. This involves, the dialogue within communities that needed to take place far before the decommissioning of the power stations or the repowering work actually takes place. The second part is also, we've also identified other opportunities within those 3 power stations, things like brick making, road filling, PPE manufacture, steel manufacture, and copper recycling. All these initiatives, we started to work on it way beforehand, particularly on the 3 power stations that are coming, like your Hendrina, Camden, Grootvlei, and we'll also further demonstrate on the detailed slide of each of those power stations. The other factor that we also learned and, doing things differently, it's around the upskilling and reskilling of the community staff and some of the contractors. Based on the lessons learned, from the implementation of the training center at Komati, we took some of those lessons and we applied them at Grootvlei and Hendrina. One of those is actually the TVET, which we're expanding some of the training centers to make sure that we've got enough reach and incorporate the curriculum into our training centers that covers the broader core skills within the gas and the renewable space that is needed for the energy mix that we're approaching on our strategy. The other important factor, you'd also recall, Chair, that when we decommissioned Komati, almost the funding was concluded at the same time when we were almost about to shut down to decommission the power station. That has really taught us an expensive lesson. And what we're doing now is to make sure that all the funding and all the multilateral development banks agreement is front-loaded and make sure that it's concluded, particularly for Camden, Grootvlei, and Hendrina. And we're at advanced stages with all different funders and banks that will be very key in terms of making sure that the projects that we're going to implement are implemented in time before any decommission or repurposing work is done at those power stations. Last but not least, it's also, we acknowledge the fact that while traditionally Eskom assumed a bigger role within the communities where the power stations are, the just energy transition is not solely an Eskom role, and it's much bigger than Eskom. So we have looked at ways of partnering with adjacent mines, local farmers, and also the community at large and the different forums of communities to make sure that we identify opportunities beyond our designated or owned land within these power stations. This would further enable us to initiate or fund projects that are much bigger and at the utility scale level, which will also further demonstrate on the other slides. If we can move on to the next slide. Chair, the next slide demonstrates, firstly, the Komati on the left, where the capacity was about 122 megawatts and about 150 megawatts of BESS. What we since learned and we incorporated into the other power stations is we also identified to develop utility scale kind of projects. If you look at the anode, you look at Camden, Hendrina, and Krill, all of those are utility scale size project above 500 megawatts, which would make Eskom really a key player in terms of utility scale clean energy or renewable energy. And one of the things that I also want to highlight, I do know that when the committee visited Komati, there was quite emphasis in terms of the when are we going to see the construction of the PV and also the battery. Just to give you quick feedback on that, we are in the process of shortlisting the supplier for the 72 megawatts PV. While on the 150 megawatts of BESS, the contract award is imminent and should be done potentially in the next 2 months. And lastly, we are also doing some assessments with regards to the long duration energy storage as part of the options that we can implement at Komati as well. When it comes to Grootvlei, the PV and the BESS, we currently on plan, and we should be able to deliver those plans by 2029, which is a significant shift from what we did at Komati. And lastly, the development work for anode, Camden, Hendrina, it's also started, and the intention as well is to make sure that all these projects that I'm sharing on the left-hand side of the slides are also implemented and operational before 2030. On the next slide. Again, Chair, if I also could highlight that some of these initiatives, we do acknowledge the responsibility that we carry, and we are also looking at initiatives that will enable economic diversification and also further job creation within the affected areas. One of these initiatives includes the containerized microgrids, where we've since rolled out 13 and in progress to roll out more. And secondly, we've also looking at agroponics and we are looking at the tests that we've currently run to support the agrivoltaic work that we do there at a pilot basis. The idea is then that when we roll out the large utility scale of solar within these power stations, we are able to also implement the agricultural part of it underneath those solar panels to make sure that we do not necessarily waste land that could have been, better utilized also as well for agriculture. The third element or aspect, we're also looking at a welding training workshop, which we started at Komati, and those training centers will also incorporate some of the skills that are quite critical in the renewables value chain as well, making sure that we do not necessarily outsource basic things like welding, steel construction, when our community or the affected locals can actually do that. And lastly is also the work that we're doing to also upskill the entrepreneurs within these areas, particularly in the skills around renewable technology, and also things that the communities or the entrepreneurs can do to capture value within the value chain of renewable technologies and clean technologies. Just on at the bottom of the slide, we just highlighting, some of the examples. I'm not going to go into detail, but it just goes to show that we've identified about 6 projects that we've prioritized for 2025. And then also, we also identified some small and medium enterprises that we've put on an accelerated program. And then most importantly, we've also identified about 15 hectares of land that we can commercialize before 2027 for agriculture. The next slide goes into the detail of the various power stations, as I've indicated earlier. But just to highlight the key important aspects, if you look on the left-hand side, we highlight that one of the lessons is that we're not gonna first decommission and start work, as Becky has alluded to, the decoupling of the jet to the life of the power station. What we'll also do further to that, to support that learning, is that we'll break the implementation process into 2 phases. The first phase is work that should happen while the power stations are running full throttle. And we've identified on the left-hand side, that we can be able to generate clean energy of about 195 megawatts, and also implement some of this battery technology of about 150 megawatts, and synchronize condensers while some of these power stations are actually running and doing its normal life cycle. Far on the right-hand side or in the middle is also just, further emphasis on the preparatory work that we've done, upfront planning work in progress in terms of the geotechs, the environmental impact assessment, and also the transaction advisors. Also, we've also collaborated with other countries when it comes to technologies such as the Climate Smart Horticulture Center, which we've already commissioned and started at Grootvlei. This is also another demonstration that we're not only planning to start this alternative or secondary job implementation when we start with the decommissioning, but we're starting it almost 3 years in advance to make sure that the community is well abreast and advanced when it comes to these skills. Lastly, on the right-hand side, I also just also want to emphasize the point about the multi-level training center, which is also, the proposal has been submitted and for approval, including the grant funding associated with that. And also the ash beneficiation, where we've also engaged the regional mayors and started the selection process of the manufacturer, and also making sure that we firm up in the business case and identify the land and make sure that the supply process is implemented way beforehand. When it comes to the next slide, which is covering Anode, Camden, and Hendrina and Kriel, similar approach. I'm not going to stand still, but of importance is also to highlight that we've identified the 2 phases, and the phase 1 also talks to the clean energies that we can implement before the repowering or repurposing of the core power station begins in 2030. And similar approach has been applied in all these power stations. And we believe we should be able to get it done before 2030. Also important to note is the critical engagements that needed to take place with the communities. One of the key things that we continuously learning is that it's easier for Eskom to talk about decoupling of the JET progress, but JET is fairly new, and the experience at Komati could easily be misinterpreted to be the JET. But we're also developing programs where we would advance our communication strategy and inform the communities around what exactly the JET progress is, and by decoupling what we exactly mean and the opportunities that are associated with that. Lastly, on this slide is also making sure that the transaction or the community engagement consultants are also implemented as of this year. I'll then hand over to my colleague to take us through how all of this incorporate into our strategy plan and the JET program.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Over to you, colleague.
Good morning, Chair, and the rest of the committee members and the colleagues that we are with in the room. My name is Nondogozo Hadebe, also a group executive at Eskom, responsible for strategy and sustainability. Chair and the members of the committee, I will just do the last slide in concluding on what my other colleagues have already started. Starting with this slide, which we have come before the committee maybe a couple of times, just to demonstrate that, yes, we have indicated the work that we are doing, particularly in the stations that are earmarked for winding down at some point. But we do have bigger ambitions in terms of diversifying our energy mix. And the JET strategy that is presented is an anchor to that, or is an integral part of that. The slide that we are showing, Peggy spoke about the 20 gigawatt of clean energy by 2040, which is demonstrated in this slide. Currently, at least 80% of our energy source is on coal, 39 gigawatt to be specific. But we see this going down by 2040 to at least about 25%, and the dominant energy source being on the renewables and the other sources. We do have to be mindful and make sure that we have a balanced mix, reduce the reliance on coal, on the fossil fuels, in line with other commitments that we have in terms of the reducing of the carbon emissions by 2030 and beyond, and also supporting South Africa's commitments to the reduction in carbon emissions. And as it stands, Eskom is the largest contributor of emissions in the context of the country. But having said that, we are still committed. We do see coal still playing a significant role in our energy mix. From its onset, we're not going to wait until 2040. Even with the coal operations that we have, as Peggy has indicated several times, that we will be deploying necessary technologies to make sure that the coal operations that we do still has an opportunity to deploy technology, clean technologies to reduce the emissions, but also to help us comply with the exemptions that, the emission standards that have been prescribed by DFFE and other parties. The biggest, as indicated, we have a number of energy sources. It's renewables, it's nuclear, it's hydro, it's gas, some of which the plans will be coming forth as we finalize the preparatory work that the teams are doing internal. Yes, 5 gigawatts that we get from the repowering of the power stations will kickstart us, but we've got bigger pipeline beyond that in other stations that are not necessarily earmarked for decommissioning soon, like Lipalale being one of the power stations where we think that can get quite a number of megawatts out of that station, probably the biggest, but Ribo can confirm in terms of the megawatts that we will be deploying in terms of the renewables in that. In going with this commitment, we've also established dedicated capacity within Eskom to help us drive the implementation of this transition towards a balanced mix. We do have a dedicated unit led as Riboningo was introducing himself. We've gone out as well to the market to get support in the establishment of the green company in bringing in the private sector to help us drive the implementation of this in a number of ways, in terms of supporting, in terms of the funding, project development as well, and not just from funding. Definitely, our transition, we have made sure that it balances the security and sustainability while we stay true to our mandate as Eskom to make sure that electricity is accessible and affordable to all South Africans. Can move to the next slide. This slide, we have to be mindful of the broader socio-economic context that we must consider in our transition as Eskom, but which will drive the transition of the country as well. As indicated, we are currently the biggest contributor, or the biggest energy company, and we intend to remain a biggest energy company in South Africa and also in the region. So we're mindful of the socio-economic context in terms of inequality, unemployment, and poverty, but also just coming closer to the coal sector, to the coal industry itself, the role that it plays in the economy. 20% contribution is quite significant. The employment of at least 100,000 workers in the coal mining sector, and also the households and the workers that are reliant on the power stations that we are mindful of, particularly in Mpumalanga, which is why the strategies that we have taken you through are a start, but what we intend to do is not to, the plans that we have is to also just make sure that we address issues of inequality, unemployment, but some of it is beyond Eskom. To Ribo's point as well, in terms of as we're transitioning towards cleaner energies, we are also looking at the opportunities of economic diversification, also using the industry to industrialize the energy industry as well, looking at local manufacturing of things like batteries and components thereof, just beyond producing energy. Those are the opportunities that, as part of our strategy, we will be bringing forth. So this just transition is anchored in that we need to enable the economic recovery. We need to address the historical socioeconomic dynamics at hand, but also as the country and Eskom, we have to be economic competitive. We know that the world is moving towards the low carbon global economy. We cannot just stay behind and operate in a fossil fuel dominated environment. We have to be competitive. So we are bringing all that into the strategies that we have presented in front of the committee. The last slide on my side is definitely there's quite a significant progress that has been made, particularly at Grootvlei and Komati and other areas, as the colleagues have indicated. It's still a huge commitment from Eskom to work within the principles that we've set ourselves for just energy transition and broadly our business strategy. There are, however, some challenges that we are facing in this journey, some of them internal, but mostly require other parties and other stakeholders beyond us. From a funding perspective, indeed, we had received the support from National Treasury in terms of the debt relief, but it does come with conditions, but also we're mindful that it does not necessarily allow us the liberty to especially invest in new business like the renewables space. So we have to find other ways to grow and expand the business, particularly in the new business, as I indicated, the renewable and the gas, which is why we're exploring the private sector partnerships to execute on the clean energy projects. We're already working with a number of stakeholders, including the DFIs in the country and other areas to see how they can assist us in this regard. The grid constraints, they are quite, we have a commitment around the 15,000 or so of transmission lines across the country, which is a commitment through the TDP that NTCSA has taken on board. No matter how much capacity we generate, if we don't have grid capacity, we will not win. So we will have to make sure that we have the grid capacity. So beyond what NTCSA is doing, we are also unlocking the grid capacity, expediting the implementation through the integrated transmission plan, which is championed from the department's perspective, bringing in the private sector to help us accelerate the other areas that requires a grid capacity, particularly where renewables are located or where, yeah. And then the socio-economic impact, we've discussed this at length between Begi and Reboningo. And as indicated as well, we are intensifying the stakeholder engagement within the communities that are likely to be impacted or closer to the project, but also with other stakeholders. The policy landscape, which we touched on in the very first slide on the internal and the external context. And also, we have been speaking about the technology as one of the drivers of our clean energy strategy, be it clean coal or from the clean energy side of things. But we're mindful of the feasibility of some of these technologies like BESS. It's even though we have deployed it, the cost curve is still a bit high. So it does limit the rollout of the battery storages across the country. The small modular reactors, which we are working with NEXA as the technology owner, but we're working with them to see the feasibility and trying to accelerate that. The carbon capture utilization usage, carbon capture usage and utilization thereof. All of that are the technologies that we are invested in as Eskom to try and help us accelerate our clean energy, but they require us to look beyond our borders and work with other parties. All in all, there is where we are at, Chair, with the JET strategy and overall the commitment in terms of our strategy of balancing the energy trilemma of security, affordability, and sustainability. Thank you, Chair. That is all from us from our side for now. Thank you.
Hello? Are you done?
Yes, Chair, we are done.
Okay.
Thanks.
So no one is going to follow?
No, Chair, the presenters were the three of us for now, Chair, and then we'll take the inputs. I don't know whether especially you want to. Okay, no, for now we are done from the Eskom side.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We really appreciate the presentation, but we will hear from the honorable members. We'll give them a chance to interact with the presentation. Honorable members, let me look at the hands and check who is in the platform and not. For now, I only see two hands, but I know for a fact that they are still going to raise their hand. All right. Now, so many. But let's start with Honorable Paulsen, followed by Honorable Tring. Then we'll follow with others. Over to you, Honorable Paulsen.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the Eskom officials, and thank you very much for the presentation. Chairperson, so we are part of the Paris Agreement, where we say we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and achieve net zero by 2050. So, Chairperson, that's all good and well, but we need to make sure that Eskom is ready to embark on this journey, and also that there would be minimum disruption or no disruption to the South African economy based on energy availability. So, around funding and financial sustainability, Chairperson, given Eskom's significant 400 billion rand debt burden, along with limited government support, because we can't keep funding Eskom in the way we have in the past. Also, due to the high cost of electricity, we now have declining energy sales and less than cost reflective tariffs. And we have escalating municipal debt. So I'd like to know, how does Eskom realistically plan to secure the substantial and sustained funding required for the entire just energy transition strategy, including the estimated 257 billion for minimum emission standards compliance and the 14,000 kilometer of grid expansion needed by 2034? That's my first question, Chairperson. If Eskom could respond, please. Chairperson?
Hello?
That was my first
Eskom?
question, if they could respond.
Okay, who is taking our time? Who's the timekeeper today? Ariko,
I am, Chair.
are you the timekeeper now?
I am the timekeeper today, Chair.
Yes, they know the procedure
Mm.
on the 10 minutes thing and also questions and answer on the same time. Fine. Continue, Eskom.
Okay.
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, Eskom.
thank you for the thank you for the comments from the honorable member Paulsen. Yes, indeed, we are party to the Paris Agreement. I think we indicated in one of the slides that there's a commitment at least to reduce 40% emissions by 2030. But we do indicate as well that, okay, maybe just to indicate that our transition, we call it a risk-based transition to minimize the disruptions that might occur, which is why we emphasize energy security and affordability as part of the transition, not just the sustainability part of it. We have been indicating that, yes, coal is an issue, but to manage this transition, we have to deploy the technology to make it clean, so that we can reduce the emissions. But Peggy can add on that so that there is no disruption. We're not just going to shut down the stations for the sake of shutdown and disrupt the economy. But where we can, let's use coal as optimal and efficient and as responsible as we can within the ambit of the commitments that we've made in terms of the NDC, the nationally determined contribution in terms of the emissions. On the second one, which Rebo is also going to explain, particularly around the clean energy, we still have cash flows that are generated from our operations, which we deploy for our capital investments internally. I think in the corporate plan presentation, we have made an allocation for example, the funding of a significant part of the TDP. If I can start with the transmission lines, particularly the last 3 years, we see quite a significant increase in the allocation to NTCSA, which even doubles or triples what they are currently being allocated for capital investments. But we're mindful that not everything can be funded internally, so we will be relying quite a lot on the private sector parties to come and help us with the funding for the rest of the portfolio. Maybe can I hand over to Peggy first, and then Rebo, you can.
Yeah, Chair, maybe for the interest of, I think my colleagues have covered the question in terms of the funding, as well as we agree with Honorable Paulson as well as Becky that we will not, through this transition, disrupt the economy. I did indicate that the focus is on continuously improving the current fleet while we are doing this transition. That's why we will see that the teams have also been splitted so that there's focused on both of them. And I think the funding, my colleague did indicate that it's going to be different forms of funding. Some of it, my colleague just said, is going to be coming from our own operations, and then also through the private sector participation, as well as supported by the National Treasury. I think those are the answers to the question that have been posed. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for the response. So I'd like to know what specific strategies are being implemented to mitigate the risks of funding delays and the impact of the US withdrawal from the International Partners Group, which accounts for approximately $1.5 billion US. What is the impact on JET funding? And also, what are the specific alternative models which you will pursue, and what concrete progress has been made in securing them to accelerate the implementation of JET projects?
Okay, Eskom, over to you.
All right, thanks, Chair. It's Reboningo Mnisi speaking. Really, this is an important question, and you know, the dynamics and the changes from the US did really change things in terms of how we traditionally view funding. But equally so, it also comes with opportunities. What we've since noticed when there's these kind of changes taking place in the market is the initiatives or the clean energy technologies that we're talking about is they need to be able to make business sense. that's really what we spoke about when we spoke about developing the business case and early development of these initiatives, because we're not necessarily just repowering for the sake of repowering, but we're repowering while benchmarking ourselves and those clean energy technologies against the REAP program. And what we've since noted with that is that, number one, there is certain things that are working well for us to come in cheaper. Firstly is our own land. We've got close proximity to the grid, which avoids a significant amount of capital spend. Secondly, we've also had engagements with the likes of the World Bank, where they managed to source funding from various international funders, and they are quite aware of our 5-year project. And from the discussions we had, they were quite keen and quite confident that they should be able to support the funding requirements that Eskom has. That's just one of the funders. We also subsequently engaged with other countries, the French Union, which also indicated appetite to partner and fund these initiatives. We've also engaged or had huge interest from also the Chinese funders that are quite interested in this. What is key is really how we go to market on these initiatives. And one of the key things that we started working on very, very closely is around our triple P model. The triple P model should be structured in such a way that it allows for us to have offtake and be able to show how these projects will make money, and then at the same time what our contribution will be from our balance sheet, which I think the colleague has touched base that we do have some sort of allocation when it comes to our equity contribution on this utility scale project, and the balance of which it can either be through DFIs or even other commercial banks where they've expressed huge interest to participate in this. So from what we saw, there's no shortage of funding to support the clean energy initiatives. What is more important than the support that we need is more the governance structures to allow for that triple P participation and the funding model to take place. And lastly, we also considering what we call blended financing, where we're not necessarily heavily dependent on what type of a funder, because what we tend to see is once you depend on one type of a funder, you easily get yourself locked up in certain conditions, which some may conflict with the, our own governance requirements within the Eskom supply chain process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that response. It's very helpful. Chairperson, I'd like to now change to the project implementation, questions around timeline and grid capacity. And to Eskom, considering that Kamati's funding agreement was concluded only after the station was shut down, what concrete measures will Eskom implement to ensure upfront and timely funding agreements for repowering and repurposing initiatives at other stations like Camden, Grootvlei, and Drina to avoid similar delays? And then also, what is the concrete plan and detailed timeline for addressing the insufficient grid capacity, which currently requires over 14,000 kilometers of expansion by 2034? I know in the previous question, Eskom responded that there's an increase in the rollout of the grid. I also would like to know how will this impact the stated goal of rolling out approximately 2 gigawatts of clean energy projects by 2026? And then another question along with grid capacity, implementation. What is the revised timeline for the completion of the Medupi flue gas desulfurization project? And what contingency plans are in place to address potential non-compliance with SOx limits or sulfur dioxide limits post-2030, given that the flue gas desulfurization project will not be completed by then, risking compliance after the exemption period? Thank you very much.
Chair,
Over to
Mr.
you,
Paulson's
Eskom.
10 minutes was up already, eh?
Oh.
No, comment. It's not my fault if
Okay.
Eskom is wrong.
Yeah. No. Don't discuss that. Your time is up, but let's give Eskom to respond to the last question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Honorable Person. I think let me start with the Medupi project. I think one of the conditions that we received from the Minister of DFFE was that
Peggy, can you come closer to the mic?
Okay.
Just move it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, I was saying with regard to the Medupi FGD, as part of the exemptions that was given by the Minister of the DFFE, was that we need to do also the economic studies on that, which is the exercise. We are busy with that, but we haven't also dropped the procurement of the FGD in parallel. So, Chair, we are preparing to go to the market of that, but correctly, because of the number of units, we will not going to be able to do all of them by 2030 as well. So they will go, the implementation will go post 2030, but we are also doing that studies as well. And then what we said as well in this presentation, Chair, we're not only looking at Medupi for reduction of this carbon footprint and also the NOx and SOx, we are looking at across the fleet. I think that's very important, Chair, that our research team is busy at work to really look at other means that we can employ in all the other stations that are, especially those running post 2030. So we are working on them to look at different technologies as well. Part of it, this cleaner coal burning as well that we spoke to. So we are deploying all of those. And then the other point with regard to the 2 gigawatts, the honorable members will know that they are not dependent on the current grid constraint. This is only where we have already got the grid, which is around our power stations. If you take, for an example, Komati, we've got the 1 gig already there that has been shut down. So there is grid capacity around our station. So that's where we are prioritizing as well this starting of this project as well. And then as the grid continues, we will continue to roll out that one. And then I think maybe to cover the points on the funding of the grid, I think my colleagues also did touch on it, that there is allocation currently, and our team from NTSA, together with other private funders, they are hard at work planning for that grid expansion on those areas where the grid is currently constrained, Chair. I think we'll leave it there, Chair, for in the interest of time. Yeah. But I think all of the questions that are covered, it is an evolution matter that we continuously reviewing as we move. But currently for the grid, there is enough funding to start the projects that are already approved, Chair.
Okay. The next hand was Honorable Ring. Make sure that you are aligned with your 10 minutes, please. Honorable member, don't want to fight today. Thank you. Over to you, Honorable Ring.
Chair, I'll indicate on the chat 5 minutes and when time is up.
Okay.
Okay, Chair. I'm going to take the same route as Honorable Paulson, Chair, in terms of my questions. The first question is how does the anticipated PV coupled with the battery energy storage output planned for Komati compare to the previous energy output provided from coal? What is the variance in this energy output? And the same question applies to Arnott and Rina Creel when their lifespan comes to an end. Thank you, Chair. First question.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Peggy. Again, Chair, let me take this one. I think, Chair, let me take Komati as an example. Komati is the 1,100 megawatt station. You've seen that the start of this, the 72 and 150 on the base, this is just the start, Chair. The projects that we are rolling out. So if you look at our presentation there, we talk about the long duration energy project. So I think when we bring all those technologies, Chair, we are quite comfortable that in the next period, we should be able to restore the full capacity of Komati, depending on the pace and the funding as well. Obviously, it's not going to be like as a base, but we're also looking at the combination of gas as well, and also the small modular reactors that we currently being investigated with the NEXA, Chair. So I think we need to look at it in that context. That is not going to be one-to-one. We might have to build more, but we need to look at the cluster between Komati, Hendrina, and the Krill and Matla. That whole area there in our Mpumalanga area is one region. So across that, our view as Eskom is to ensure that the current capacity that we have on all these stations as a start, we feel that as well with different technologies that we will be bringing in, Chair, not only PVs and solar. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So I think very clearly we are replacing 1,000 megawatt power station with something that is going to be producing in terms of the JET in the short term, with some 200 to 300 megawatts from JET, from PV and the battery energy storage. But that's fine, Chair. I think I've got the answer. Second question, I'm trying to rush so that we can keep within the time. The financing of the proposed JET, this is looking at the 2023-2027 time span, was estimated to be in the region of about 1.4 trillion rand, or some 98.7 billion dollars. Now, the funding was said to be coming from your IPGs, the private sector, and the public. And from those three sectors, IPGs, the private sector, and the public, the estimated funding coming from there was around 770 billion rand. That would have left us a shortage of about 700 billion rand. So the question was, has that outstanding amount of 700 billion rand been sourced? And if so, where has it been sourced from? And what is the nature of the funding coming from the IPGs? Is it grants? Is it loans, or is it some other derivative? Thank you, Chair. Second question.
I don't think
All right,
I must say it over to you, Becky, because of the time. Time is counting, and also just shoot, and then even the honorable member must ask the following question. Over to you, Gedan, because those minutes are going to be waste, like they are moving. They are not still. Sure.
All right, thanks, Chair. We'll follow suit as soon as the members ask. We'll just jump into answer. I think the question around how do we source the balance? My understanding, or our understanding, is that the 1.4 trillion covers beyond the Eskom requirements. It's more of a national requirement, which I believe probably my colleagues from the DE or government itself will be able to assist us. But coming back to the requirements of Eskom, we have done a project outlay or capital outlay all the way to 2040. And in the short term, in terms of the initial projects that we're implementing, we will fund some of those from our balance sheet. And then secondly, we have outlined the program and the triple P model that will be going out to partner with them. We have allocated enough money to do our own equity funding into that. The second question was around what type of funding. Is it grants, loans, from the IPGs? It is a combination of all of those. I think majority of the grant funding comes on project development. But then when we come to project construction and O&M, it's usually loans, which attract much lower interest rate. But like I said, those loans also come with different conditions. So the idea is not solely to get married to one kind of a funder, but to do a blended finance, which then gives you the benefit from that comes with the different skills from the different players, and most importantly, the different role that they can inject into the different projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Chair, my last question. According to Stats SA, as at 2022, the coal industry contributed some 493.8 billion rand to the country's GDP. The coal sector also employs some 475,000 people, 475,561. This is a huge so it's close onto 500,000 people employed within the coal industry. I'm glad to hear that the minister has indicated that coal is not the problem. The challenge is emissions. We have some 200 years worth of coal, good quality coal, beneath our soil. Now, how, in terms of the figures presented by Stats SA, in terms of coal's contribution to the GDP, the number of people that are currently employed because of the coal industry and the coal sector, what is your estimation? Would the JET, the Just Energy Transition Plan, strategy plan, improve on these figures? Or are we going to see a reduction in these figures as we've seen at Komati? Thank you. That is my final question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I think, Honorable Person, the questions you're raising is quite critical with those figures. Obviously, as we are transitioning, we've taken the lessons at Komati, and I think we in Eskom, we also agree with what the minister has pronounced to say the coal is not a problem, but the issue we need to deal with is emissions. We did indicate, Chair, that as part of the clean coal technologies, we are hard at work with our research teams and other local and international researchers to focus on that issues of the cleaner coal technologies, because we understand the impact. So we will also be bringing in some of those technologies while continuously improving on dealing with the emissions on especially the station that run post 2030 as well. So that is the huge focus currently on that, Chair. I think we're fully aligned, but whether it's going to be a one-to-one approach, we can't say that one, Chair, but we would want to grow the economy in all fronts as well, while we're continuously using all the available resources and meeting our emission targets. That is really the main issue that we are focusing on now. Because if we can meet those targets, then we can run our plants much longer. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to indicate that it appears then that Eskom cannot actually give us any guarantees in terms of where there's going to be a one-to-one comparison with the current figures that I've actually given. That's what I've understood.
Yeah, Chair, through you, Chair, is correct, Chair, because if you take the whole coal industry, Chair, is not only dependent on Eskom. I think it's an issue that become broader than Eskom. It's more the country issue, Chair, that need to be looked at as well. Because although Eskom is the bigger player, but there is other sectors of the economy that calls is also supporting, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I see my time is up.
Chair.
The next honorable member, according to the list, is Honorable Ngosi, followed by Honorable Bapti.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I would like to welcome the report and the presentation from Eskom, a presentation that to me, Chair, it brings hope, in particular to the coal-dependent communities. Chair, decoupling, it says repowering coal power plants. So the decommissioning, it's actually something that is put aside. It says it will clean coal involving various physical and chemical processes. That for me, Chair, it's something that brings hope. Because the transition aspect regarding social and economic impact, in particular regarding job losses in the coal sectors and the economic impact on the coal-dependent regions or communities, has always been my deepest fear, Chair. Together with skills mismatch as well, that jobs generated in the renewable energy sector may not directly align with the skills of workers from coal plants. That I was a bit afraid of, Chair, but the presentation today, I think it brought some hope for me, Chair. Chair, my question will be, how will the decoupling impact the availability of international climate finance, particularly the grants versus loans? That will be my first question, Chair.
Honorable member, I think there's different types of funders that we come across. There's one that want to link the repowering and repurposing to decommissioning, and that we've made it quite clear that our strategy is decoupled to decommissioning. So since we've made or pronounced this to these different funders, we've seen a positive response where I think most of the funders are actually more interested to say, how can we develop a business case that can compete and make sure that the energy that we get from this land that we own can compete with what the other IPP players are building. So I think the focus is much more in terms of the business case development and grid access, and making sure that we've got the required partners to be able to develop and construct. There hasn't been much resistance based on the fact that we decoupled from the decommissioning. Thanks.
Chair, my next question will be, what are the specific revised timelines for the repowering of individual coal power plants under the decoupled plan?
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. You'll recall that there was a slide, I think it was slide 9, where we did highlight, I think, the different sites from Komati all the way to Kriel, for about 6 sites. All of these sites, according to our project plans, we plan to open up our phase 1 on each of these power stations by between 2029 and 2030. That is like commercial operation of the phase 1 sites that we've identified.
Thank you, Chair. Those are the only questions that I have. Thank you very much. I'm just glad that we will still be using coal for all the power plants, in particular the ones that were closer to being decommissioned. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Babji.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, let me start off by saying to Eskom that the
You,
presentation.
excuse me, Honorable, you'll be followed by Honorable Mulif.
Okay. May I proceed? Chair?
Proceed.
Chair, it's okay. Honorable Bhakti can go before me.
All right, thank you, Chair. Chair, let me just start off by saying my appreciation to Eskom for this presentation, which provides a lot more clarity and substance around the change we'll see over the next 15 years. I certainly do appreciate it, but I do want to draw attention to slide number 13, which I'm using as the basis of my question. And what it shows us is the change in Eskom's energy mix over the next 15 years and the growth of an additional 30 gigawatts of power over that same period. Now, given that Eskom is such a big player in the South African economy machinery, its medium and long-term viability is essential. Mr. Manisi did refer to repowering must make business sense, and I want to just say thank you very much for that statement, because it's a principle that, if not applied, I think has the possibility or the potential to affect the balance sheet in a negative way. But if it makes business sense, then it's going to add to the viability of Eskom over the long term. What I am looking for is a little more detail on the capital outlay plan, the triple P model, and the blended financing that aligns with that 15-year period. And I understand that might not be possible to do that right now, but I would ask if we could have a bit more detail relating to the financial plan that matches that 15-year transition period. The other aspect to complete the picture for myself, which I'm asking for, and the question is, does Eskom have a tracking or a reporting tool that juxtaposes energy generation over this period with carbon emissions, so we can see how the shift in generation affects the output of carbon and greenhouse gases? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Bapti. It's Nondogozo Hadebe here again. Maybe on the financial plan, how we approach it, we do it over 5 years and as part of our corporate plan. We have, I just want to maybe just pick up the figures. So it will not necessarily match the 15 years one-to-one, but we do have an estimate. So what we publish officially is the 5-year financial plan or capital plan as part of our corporate plan, which in that we have an estimation of 521 billion over the next 5 years allocated to our capital investments. And most of that will be towards the generations business, the distribution, as well as NTCSA. So what we have said, out of that 521 billion, we do catalyze the new business, the green and gas, but most of that will be coming from other partnerships that we are looking at, which Reboningo has spoken to, and also the various forms, the triple P, the grant, the loans, and the blended finance that we are looking into. But in our corporate plan 5 years, we have 521 billion. It's mainly to sustain the current business, but also catalyze the new investments, the bulk of it bringing in the private sector. Let me hand over to, I don't know. That's the first question, mainly on the financial plan, but there was a second
Yeah,
question.
I think maybe to cover, Honorable Bapti, the issue of monitoring, definitely we are, as part of our licensing, we are reporting to the department as well, and internally within Eskom, we are also tracking the trajectory of all our emissions as well from our plants. Thanks, Chair. Honorable Chair, we are done from the response side. Honorable Bapti.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Bapti. And then I said it's Honorable Brian who's going to follow.
Thank you, Chair.
Excuse
Congratulations.
me, Honorable, you'll be followed by Honorable Fasia.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, Chief Generation Engineer, on stabilizing the grid and not having load shedding for a sustained period of time. My first question is, what happened to the decision that was taken many years ago by the board to refurbish rather than decommission or repurpose power stations? That whenever we have a major maintenance outage, new equipment will be put into the power station, as well as the equipment that will make the emissions, to reduce the emissions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Molefe. I will also convey the message to the team in generation. Yeah, Honorable Molefe, you're right. I think that has not changed. You will see that most of our station outages currently are a bit longer as well, which also talks to the reduced EAF. I mean, we are doing stations like Letabo now. We are redoing most of the projects there. It's not a normal maintenance, but it's more to refurbish our emission reduction strategies. We are doing the same at Tutugas and Matla, Krel, and all of those. So that is ongoing, Honorable Molefe. The issue here now is that the issue of refurbishment that involve now the issue of reduction of sulfur and the NOx and all of those and carbon were never part of that type of, it was more focused on emissions. So now we are going to that next trajectory now of dealing with those SOx and NOx and carbon itself. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question is, how compliant are we with the international emission standards and the international emission budgets that have been allocated to South Africa? Do we have a crisis as a country from an emissions point of view?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Molefe. I think the emission standard, especially post 2030, because then it calls for this issue of reduction much aggressively. So I think that's where the biggest risks are, because the stations were designed with different technologies. So hence we're having this drive now to really implement a lot of emission abatement technologies on the stations running post 2030. But it's not going to, all of them be ready, including Medupi, is not going to be ready by 2030. So it's going to be an ongoing issue to comply with that, honorable members. I think it's going to be good that I put that point across, that the stations that I think Kusile will meet most of the requirements going forward, but currently the next station is going to be Medupi, but the particulate, most of the stations will meet that, but the NOx and SOx will require more work as part of the current ongoing refurbishment, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then My third question is, has there been a cost-benefit study, cost-benefit analysis, or a business case on the JET, specifically relating to South Africa? Because I don't remember seeing something like that that shows what are the real costs and what are the benefits of doing the JET, just energy transition.
Thanks, Honorable Member. I think there hasn't been a detailed, specific JET study, but one thing that we also looking at is the cost of electricity and the cost of these various projects that we alluded to. So each of these projects comes with a detailed feasibility study, bankability study. Hence, even when we take it for triple P, they would want to see those cost benefit unit costs and whether it's feasible or not feasible. Hence, the earlier statement that I alluded to, that we're moving to an era where it's not just about energy on the grid, or it's not just about, community projects, but all of them has to be tested, because once you bring on and partner on board, it's about the merits and the commercials of these initiatives.
Yeah, I find it very strange that such a big transition process has not been properly costed and the benefits assessed. But anyway, my fourth question is, which country has successfully executed a joint energy transition? And what does a successful joint energy transition look like? Are there any studies that have been conducted about, and what are the lessons from countries that have conducted the joint energy transitions?
Thank you, Honorable Molefe. We try, particularly through our research team, just to track and strategy team what's happening in other countries. Indeed, there are clusters of the way that the countries have dealt with the just transition. We have on the European side mostly, where they have, and the Australia as well, where they have really a transition to much more energy mix bias towards the renewables. We have the likes of China, which they are transitioning, driving aggressively both the renewables as well as still having the flexibility of the coal operations, but deploying the coal, the clean coal, which is what we are also trying to follow. Obviously, the uptake and the challenges differ, and we're also tracking the lessons. In some instances, even though they've transitioned, then you find that there's an issue in terms of the grid dynamics, and then the new research then ensues to solve for the grid dynamic that is happening. But there are different approaches. There has been successes in the European countries in terms of mostly the stability, but the research now is moving into the balancing the grid with all the energies that are coming in. But there are other countries that are still driving both renewables and the coal, which is the position that Eskom is taking at this point in time. But we definitely track it along and make sure that the learnings are part of that. We are part of a number of memberships through our research team as well, to make sure that we get those learnings on an ongoing basis, the likes of APRIS, VGPE, and we get them as and when, and if there's a problem in one particular country, we then sit as part of those memberships to analyze. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, now I was looking for a country that you can say is a successful JET country. But does SADC have a JET program? And is there a continental JET effort? Or are we just alone in Africa on this journey? Hello?
We are here, we're still digesting. We're not necessarily alone, but probably in South Africa, we are leading, but there are other countries that are working on their own jet strategies across the
countries like?
Countries like Senegal, Namibia, they're driving the likes of hydrogen to see if Kenya as well. There's quite a number of them, but maybe it might not be as integrated in terms of the African continent. But there are different areas that are trying.
No, I know that there are a few countries that are trying renewables, but I don't know if they are involved in a just energy transition in the way that we are involved. But another question is nuclear part of the JET program? Because nuclear, as you know, is probably the safest, the cleanest energy that is available. And is Eskom considering the new technology of using nuclear waste stored at Falpets for generating electricity? Because I believe the Chinese have come across a way of using nuclear energy to generate electricity.
Yes, Honorable Malife, yeah, definitely nuclear is part of our transition, as seen on the slides there. And then, but in terms of generating from the waste itself, I think it's something that we will take it over with our research team to see what's happening, and also with the waste team within the department. So currently, I'm not aware that we are not working on the waste, on the generation from waste. We are looking at the traditional nuclear reactors, the SMRs and micro reactors, but from the waste side, I think it's something that if it's being done somewhere, we will take the action, Chair, to action our research team together with other departmental researchers to look at that. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, my time is up, but I had a few more questions, but I'll wait for the second round.
Honorable Fassi.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Apologies for the nasal sound. I'm a little bit fluish. I think we're all just going through that. Let me appreciate the presentation by Eskom. And I just wanted to also say, just before I start my points, and I think it's before Honorable Molefe joined us as a full-time member, CSIR has actually done some interesting studies along with Sanedi. There was very specific case studies actually on the just energy transition, on clean coal, on SAREM, etc., etc. And they actually presented Honorable Molefe, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago before the budget vote. But I have no doubt that we can invite those entities again, because there's some interesting work that's been done in a way that moves at a pace that we're all comfortable with, but one that doesn't leave people behind. So I thought I'll just put that in. My first point to Eskom, and I think it's important and actually appreciated that there's a decoupling from the just energy transition to the decommissioning of stations that have reached commercial close. And it's very important that those two things are separated because we must be very clear on the challenges that arise from the decommissioning of power stations, huge job losses, economic loss, etc., but also about the interventions that need to happen. Now, I want to join Honorable Tring by echoing the same concerns that while JET as a concept we fully agree with, the reality is that we can't be replacing. In fact, it's not possible at this stage to replace like for like. So I think it's important for us to say that, right? I'm also interested to know, and this is my first question to Eskom on the long-term plan, in terms of the number of job opportunities, in terms of economic opportunities, is there space for scale? Is there space for us to scale up energy transition that can create mass job opportunities? That's my first question. And if they can come in quite quickly so I can ask my follow-up related to that. Thank you.
Chair, let me take that one. I think, Chair, definitely there is, depending, like if you take areas like the nuclear program as well, once we have more than 10 gigs, then it also creates the space for local manufacturing as well. So we are also looking at the technologies that we're going to be bringing in, that not only to generate, but also to manufacture it inside the country as well, Chair. So in the value chain, I think we see a huge opportunity for scaling on these jobs. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And related to that matter, and I'm actually in agreement with members who spoke around nuclear as an opportunity here. Is there any cross collaboration between Eskom and Nexa around, the future of potential SMR builds? I know there's other opportunities as well, but if we're looking at it, and I think Nexa mentioned it in their 5-year strat plan, around the replacement of power stations that are being decommissioned as a possible opportunity for SMR builds. Now, I know you can't go into much detail necessarily now, but I just appreciate to know if there is some cross collaboration or cross pollination ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Faustina. We are working very closely with Nexa. Actually, Nexa is going to be the technology owner, but we will be the O&M. So at least we are in the same department. We are having weekly meetings as well as part of the planning for the build program, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Chair, in the future, when some of these issues come to fruition, it will be very good to hear from both Eskom and Nexa on these issues. My next question is on slide 13. You talk about some of the opportunities for the just energy mix, or let me just say energy mix rather, and it relates to gas, okay? Now, do those numbers take into account the upcoming gas cliff? Is this an opportunity for us to create a domestic gas market that is financially viable? So I just want to understand if this is that link. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Fasima. Definitely the numbers does deal with the whole gas to the country as well. So you will see that on those numbers from an Eskom perspective, it's going to be the 3,000 megawatt in the Richards Bay that will enable the port. And then once that port is available, then it becomes easier for the industry of the gas to drive from that. Yeah. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I think what's becoming clear is that there is an opportunity for us to create a financially viable domestic gas market that allows, number one, for the long-term prevention of a gas cliff, but also deals with the decline of gas that's coming from Mozambique. But that's a much broader conversation that needs to happen. But I think there is huge potential. My last question, Chair. In the earlier part of your presentation, in fact, in the latter as well, you spoke about an issue or challenge of climate financing, because the current financing models, if I'm right, and if I understood you correct, are focusing on climate mitigation, right, versus actual adaptation. Can you please just explain that a little bit more for all of us who are still trying to understand the difference, number one? But number two, does it cover, for example, a retrofit? Okay, Kusile, we know already can deal with some of those SOx and NOx, but let's say retrofitting a Medupi, for example, would that be covered in this sort of climate financing, or would it be a separate kind of issue? Thank you.
Thanks, Honorable Hassan. Yes, definitely the climate mitigation is more on the retrofitting of the existing infrastructure that you have, while the adaptation is more on the new build and the new infrastructure that we have. So if we look at this slide, we are already, or we will be driving more the adaptability or adaptation with the renewables. That's the way of the adaptation, but we are also looking at not just the renewables from the generation perspective, but also the grid side of things to make sure that it is resilient to climate risks. In terms of the financing, it really depends on the partners or the funders. Some will not necessarily, most will consider even the mitigation, like the likes of FDGs as part of the climate financing, as well as the adaptation, as long as it demonstrates the impact in terms of the reduction of the emissions. So it definitely is covered by the climate financing. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it would be useful, not necessarily in today's meeting, but in future meetings, if we can just look at some opportunities. And I wonder if we invite the other, I mentioned CSIR and Sanedi, it would be interesting to know what kind of climate financing tools are available. And I don't just mean for large scale projects. I'm also wondering about what we're doing on the ground for communities, especially those communities that are very hard hit, because it's one thing for the World Bank to say, we'll give you this money when X power stations are decommissioned, but it doesn't really deal with the issue on the ground. So I'm just thinking more broadly, it would be helpful to know, and maybe that's something from our research side as well, Lee, we can look into, so that when we advise or when we come up with policy positions, the reality is they can be funded. And I think it was Honourable Paulson and a number of others actually who mentioned it, that all good and well, but if we can't fund all of these good ideas, we won't be able to take them forward. So it would just be helpful to know. I don't expect the department to have an answer on this now, but it would be helpful in the future, if we can just pull together, and I'm sure even NGOs would know this, like what kind of climate financing tools they are in a holistic sense. But with that, Chair, I'm comfortable, and I'm actually quite excited about this project. I think we need a further, or the strategy rather, we need further updates, but it's really good to see that Eskom is evolving and moving in a direction that, very importantly, modernizes, but even more important to that, does not leave people behind. And perhaps share in further oversights, we can look at the Grootvlei power station in that area and how that's a lesson learned. You see, we saw a negative situation in Komati. We need to fix that fundamentally, but let's also go and see that if we have truly learned those lessons, are they being implemented in the Grootvlei example? Thank you, Chair. I'm comfortable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fase, and also to other members. But if there are any follow-up, since we still have time, let me also look at the hands. I know Brian has indicated that he has a follow-up question, and who else has got one? Let's meanwhile give you Honorable Mulefe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Just a question here. Is Oberholzer's battery project also part of the JET program? And what will happen to the batteries at the end of their life? Hello.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. I think the projects that are run by the IPP office, they are part of the broader transition in terms of the energies, but those are outside the Eskom execution, Chair, but they form part of the broader country energy mix as well. Thanks.
But the disposal of the batteries, how do you anticipate that it will happen at the end of their life?
Yeah, I think, Chair, I can talk to this one from an Eskom perspective as well. The research team, they're already working on the strategy for that in terms of the disposal of that waste, so that there's no waste that create problems as well. So I think maybe it's something that, like Honorable Hassan was saying, that between ourselves and NEDI and CSIR, we can come together, because the teams are working together on this to say part of the battery management life cycle is to ensure the end of life utilization of it. I think that strategy can then inform maybe what can be adopted for the country as well. So it's something that between myself, my colleagues, Nontos and myself, we can take it on board.
So there is no
different research teams within the...
So there is no solution at the moment.
Given the current nature of these batteries being in their early stages as well, I think there is some lessons that we will also look up across the board. I will also maybe action our partner EPRI to look at what is being done. But I'm confident that we will have, the team has already been actioned on that. Yeah, thanks.
All right. And then how will the solar panels that are being used at the moment for the generation of solar power be disposed of at the end of their life? Has that been given consideration?
Yeah, Chair, when we look at especially batteries and PV panels, I will also talk from an Eskom perspective. It falls under the same strategy that I know that I've directed our research team, but we will brought in to include Sanidi and CSIR to come up with a proper disposal strategy, because we are still on both of this technology in our early stages, Chair. So I don't want to say that we have a plan that is approved at this stage. From an Eskom point of view, no, we don't have, Chair. But we can come with the progress when we meet the committee as we move forward, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. What is the status of the just energy transition amongst the BRIC countries? And does Eskom discuss this with our counterparts in these countries? And finally, the Pebble Bed Modular Reactor project, is it still alive, or is it been revived, or is it really dead? Because I think it would be a great opportunity for just energy transition as well.
Thank you, Honorable. Let me deal with the PPMR part of it. Currently, like I've indicated, Honorable Murphy, that NEXA is going to be the responsible party for the SMR, which PPMR is part of that. So currently, PPMR project is being moved to NEXA, and then once they finalize the movement, but we are working closer with them as well. And then in terms of the BRICS, obviously, I think we are the smallest on that. We are learning. I think my colleagues also did indicate what's happening in China. Obviously, because of their vastness of their economy, and then they are doing exactly what we are also doing, and we are learning. We have a BRICS liaison teams as well that we are in constant contact. So we're quite aware of what they are doing, and I think we are not too far from with what we are also implementing here, Chair. Thanks.
No further questions, Chair.
I'm looking at there is also a hand of Honorable Nchabele. Over to you, Honorable.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, and I have assumed that by the time this jet plan is actually been executed, by now there would have been a clear case study that is in place, in relation to how it's going to be implemented. So it's a bit too fuzzy to be bringing something at an idea level over to, for instance, portfolio committee to say, no, we are still in an ideation process. I assume it's not an ideation, but there is something tangible. Maybe the committee, maybe the executives are not being open to say that we have already plans that are in place. Just energy transition, and one of the executives mentioned it, I think board of executives said that the just energy transition has already been implemented in China. Maybe on that side of it is, let's do the comparison. China is increasing its coal capacity at almost 1 million megawatts of coal. When they're adding the just energy, which is literally supplementing and not being grid tied, because most of renewables in China are not grid tied. They are independent, they are running in terms of off-grid, and they are doing almost a pegging with the grid. So in this case, how is Eskom planning to be implementing this? Because you can't make renewables an offsetting of coal and purely relying on renewables as a transition. It's not going to work. It has not proven to work. And in the next 30 years, there is no such a technology that can do that unless we want to deindustrialize South Africa. So is there a plan to do an off-grid or grid-tied solution of your renewables that are not going to try and literally remove coal's capacity out of the...
Thank you, Chair. I will also allow my colleagues Monday to come in on the off-grid solutions. But we agree with Honorable Nchabeling that the renewables by themselves, they will not power. Hence, you see our mix. We're seeing as the coal side is reducing, we're seeing the increase in the nuclear, so as gas, and also the storage capacity, which involve the pump storages and all of that. So that's what we are seeing is happening as well, and also taking the lessons from the other countries that went too far on the renewables. So I think this plan that we are sharing here, Chair, it takes into account exactly what you're talking to, Honorable Nchabeling. And then also maybe my colleagues, Munde, you want to talk on the off-grid solutions as well that we are busy with? Thanks.
Yeah, good morning, honorable members, and to the question from Honorable Nchabeling. So a significant portion of the current renewables fleet that is being connected onto the network is indeed grid tied. We are also rolling out some off-grid solutions. This is specifically in relation to areas that are far-flung, that are far from the existing grid. But at the end of the day, we envision a situation where those also become grid tied with the passage of time. What we're doing in parallel as we are connecting these renewables into the grid is that we're looking at a grid stabilizing or grid forming technologies to be rolled out as part of as part of the grid connections that we're currently implementing. We're taking lessons from some of the other countries that have run into problems with the penetration of renewables and the intermittency of the renewable technology. And it is our firm view that as we increase the penetration of renewable technology, we must do so having regard of grid forming and grid stabilizing technologies as part of the implementation. Thank you.
Yeah. I think on a follow-up side of it is maybe to be much more clear. Is there a plan currently within the existing plan where we can start talking about an isolation of like almost a smart grid in a smart city environment where you can literally isolate areas and do a multiple offering solution as Eskom, whereby you would have your cogeneration coming out of the solar, renewables, and other alternatives, as well as tying it up for backup with Eskom, in that scenario. Because if we have to really play the futuristic in order for it to survive. But the futuristic element of it is it has to be on a smart city or smart grid level where you can have Eskom playing as a backup and then your entire renewable solution playing as the mainstay during the day with a bit of backup in terms of battery. But that does not work for heavy industries or even major, consumers of electricity users. But in a smart city, in a smart grid environment, you can easily implement that. Is there a plan of that sort?
Yeah, the answer is yes. We are in the process of rolling out those plans. We are actually executing a project that that is a smart city in Musina. So that project is currently under construction. We are looking at accelerating that program with 40 other sites as part of the INEP rollout. So there is such a plan, but yes, it's still at a smaller scale. We're looking at how best we can scale that up. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the openness of Eskom to be partnering with industry as well as other interested investor partners on PPP.
Honorable Member, we did acknowledge that we are working on a framework that will enable for that, particularly because we also identify the skills that we need on these clean technologies and also the need for us to execute at speed and with agility. So the PPP framework that we're working on will definitely address this. And majority of the initiatives that we have at utility scale will be in a triple P format.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of a PPAs, where Eskom becomes an off-taker, where there are investor partners who are interested in setting up their own, generation, would Eskom be looking at literally awarding PPAs outside the IPP's office program?
All right. Thanks, Honorable Member. I think Eskom, we're looking at both regulated and unregulated market. There's a vast amount of interest within the unregulated space as the law allows. So we are looking at creating a power pool together with the distribution colleagues, where we should first be catering for our own generation that we have, but potentially there's room for us to look at future models. The second part that we're also looking at is we're also working what we call the model where distribution is looking at creating an aggregator model that will also allow the public to play in that space. Thanks.
Thank you. And then a follow-up. In terms of your rooftop solar program, are you looking at anything as Eskom to be augmenting in respect to doing any rooftop solar solutions in order to, add on the grid in terms of what you currently have on a generation level, and looking at either partners who are interested in the rooftop solar, supplement program where you can take a PPA on it? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Honorable Chaweleng. Yes, indeed, as part of the alternative technologies, we are looking at rooftop solar. We are in the process of putting together packages that will talk to the accelerated rollout of rooftop solar. So yes, for that, we are going to be looking at strategic partners and strategic partnerships to try and to see how quickly and best we can get that going. We do have an opportunity of the existing mainly residential rooftop solar, wherein we're sitting with about between 4,000 and 6,000 megawatts on people's roofs that we are trying to harvest. For that to happen, we need this accelerated smart meter rollout so that we can be able to make best use of that opportunity. But yes, in terms of rooftop solar, it is part of the mix, and it is an opportunity that we're trying to accelerate. Thank you.
Thank you. And in respect to commercial, where you would be rolling out commercial, for instance, solar-based technologies for your charging, as well as charging stations, as well as by supporting commercial vehicles, on the aspect of using clean technologies and energy. Does Eskom have that program incorporated in the renewables program right now?
Yeah, Eskom has got that program. So we've got what we term to be our e-mobility program, wherein as a first phase, we are starting with the Eskom fleet. We are rolling out a charging stations across our current sites. We have a program that talks to the acceleration of public charging. We have been invited to lead the JET e-mobility work stream, wherein we will be looking at again rolling out the public charging infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, can I still go on my questions? My time is still allocated. Okay, let me fire on actually. Thank you. In respect to that, what we've already, how is Eskom planning on finalizing this refit tariff solution in respect to the metering, reverse metering, when the solution to harvest existing energy on rooftop solars or even solar farms. Is Eskom looking at assisting those that are going to be doing co-generation, the ability to have reverse metering and integration back into the distribution network in the case? Is there a solution
Honorable
or
Chabaleng,
technology already finalized or concluded on that?
Yes, the solution is concluded. We are in the process at the moment. We have what we refer to as net billing. Net billing is when what you've got as your solar installation generating more than what you consume at a given time, and then the surplus that is then given into the grid. We net that off on your bill at the end of the month. So that product is available. That product, there are people that have signed up for that product, and they are actually benefiting from the product. In parallel, we are working on the issue of the feed-in tariff, wherein now we'll actually be paying you actual money for feeding into the grid. So, but that technology again is dependent on the availability of the smart metering technology. Once that is deployed, then you need to be at the appropriate tariff in terms of your time of use tariff. So once we get that those two things in place, then we're all good to go. That technology is available and it is currently in use, and we are again trying to accelerate it. Thank you.
Thank you. The last thing is, what is around manufacturing? Is there a plan to be supporting manufacturers of battery technology as well as solar wafer, not just the importation of panels? In terms of the solar wafer refinery, if you're talking about a 6.5 gig of harvesting, that's a massive solar panels requirement. Is there a incentive that Eskom will be looking at in terms of assisting manufacturers as well as people going into the industry for innovation and technology to be building these products locally? Because if this plan is anchored on importation of components, it's almost a futile plan, because it will sink the country. But if we were to do a local manufacturing or localization or even a value addition within the South African context, then it will create the necessary jobs and opportunities required. Is there a plan by Eskom to be assisting manufacturers of battery technology as well as of solar wafer, as well as solar panel technology and the harnessing components and equipment? Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Chabaleng is Peggy. Definitely, we've got those plans. Actually, we've been to the market already because our view is exactly what you're saying. Part of the repurposing power stations is also to do exactly what you are talking to as well, because it's to create additional jobs. So we've been to the market on those technologies to get the partners to come and do that work within the country as well. So those plans are there. Thanks, Chair.
Chair?
Yes. Are we done with the time of Njabuleng?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. It seems as if there is no follow-up, any other follow-up. So it means we can just say to Eskom, we thank them very much for their presentation. Even to myself as a person who's a layman, I now understand what JET means. We've been talking about this JET quite a long time, not sure exactly what is it that's going to happen, but at least now it is clearer, and also it will also assist us as the committee going forward. Can I thank you, all of you, and thank you for having time to explain to us thoroughly on what we want. It doesn't mean that the questions are closed and we're done. We can sleep over on it and also come tomorrow with other questions. But we know that all those questions should via the secretary to you so that you can respond maybe in writing. We thank you ever so much. We really appreciate, and we can see that there is a move a little bit, even if it is not as we thought, but the reality of the matter, some other issues are cleared now. Thank you ever so much. We can excuse you because we're going to get into the internal business, which means then you are excused. Thank you. Thank you once more. But we haven't forget that this has been requested, the weather. We call Sanedi and all of you in one room and also ask maybe some few questions. Maybe we'll also assist you by forwarding those questions that you have to prepare for them. Thank you. Thank you once more. You are excused.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much.
They are all out, Ariko, so that we can continue with our minutes. Firstly, the one of the 25th June, and then the last set will be the 27th June. Can we then lead us, Secretary, lead us?
That's fine, Chair. As you've indicated, Chair, these are the minutes of Wednesday 25, when we dealt with the BAS issue. There's the attendance register. Opening remarks, adoption of apologies and the agenda for the meeting. Presentation by the IPPO. Discussions, opening remarks by the Minister of Electricity and Energy. And then the discussions that followed. And then the consideration and adoption of outstanding minutes, and then the resolutions. That's it, Chair, for 25 June.
Thank you, Secretary. Can I get first the corrections, if there are any amendments, corrections, etc., so that we can go to the adoption of these minutes as a true reflection of that day. Honorable Fasia.
Thanks, Chair. If Rico can please just scroll up right to the top. I just want to check something before I move for the adoption. Okay, if we can just scroll down, I just want to check attendance. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm happy. I've checked the other parts of the minutes rather, and I'm happy to move for the adoption of this set of minutes as a true reflection of the meeting. Thank you.
Honorable Fasia has moved. Any seconder to this? Honorable Bapti?
I will second it, Chair.
Minutes are seconded. Thank you, Honorable Bapti. Let's go to the minutes of the 27th. Flight them, Rico, and lead us on those.
Where's 27? Thanks, Chair. This is Friday, the 27th of June, where the agenda item was the tabling and possible consideration and adoption of the committee budget vote report for 2025. Attendance register again. Opening remarks, adoption of the apologies and the agenda for the meeting. And then tabling of the committee budget vote report. And that's that, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Can I get someone who corrects, who amends, who adopts? Honorable Vusi?
Thank you, Chair. I just Chair move with the adoption of the minutes as they are.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Vusi. Any seconder? Honorable Bapti?
Yeah, I will second the move.
Honorable Bapti seconds the adoption. Any other thing, Secretary, in terms of announcement, update, etc.? Secretary?
Oh, sorry, Chair, I was muted. Yeah, no, just to indicate, Chair, that this has been our last meeting now for this term, the second term. According to the parliamentary program, next week there are sittings the whole week. That's why we don't have meetings. So next week, Friday, will be the last day of Parliament sitting for the second term. According to the parliamentary program, members will return on 1 September for the third term. So, yeah, so that's it for this term, Chair. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ariko. Honorable Tring?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I didn't want to raise this particular question or this particular aspect that I'm raising now during question time because it did not fit within the just energy transition scope that we were dealing with. But Chair, if you can recall that at the beginning of the year, we had Eskom come to us and with the Auditor General also indicating that Eskom had not submitted their financials on time. During that meeting, Chair, I recommended that in order to ensure that Eskom does not default again, that we, on a quarterly basis, have Eskom report to us on giving us an update on their preparedness to submit their financials on time. The Minister also agreed with me and he made a statement, if I can recall, saying it was as if you were reading my mind. So, Chair, I know that this is now the end of the second term, but would like to recommend, or come close to the end of the second term, but like to recommend that in the third term, we also have Eskom speak to us on their preparedness to meet the deadlines and what the conditions of Eskom's finances actually are.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Bapti.
It's String, Chair.
Yeah, Honorable String, excuse me. Honorable String, you have just reminded us about a very critical thing, and Secretary is here, so he is noting that, and out of the program that we'll have, he will also insert and check on how to go about with this. Thanks ever so much for that. Any other person? Any other honorable member? No one. Thanks ever so much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Honorable Fasia. But wait, let's talk through the cell phone.
Thanks, Chair. The system worked very well today, right? We appreciate that.
You were very good.
Thank
Even
you, Chair.
yourself, you just go straight to the questions. No
You see,
problem.
that's what we wanted, Chair. That's what we wanted. Thank you.
Why were you not doing in other times? It's
No,
bro.
no,
No,
now
thanks
with the
so
new
much.
system, we'll do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Chair.
Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.